Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first ever episode of Catching Feelings with John Saponaro. I am John Saponaro, of course. I am your host. This is broadcast on my Instagram. It's also live on the Facebook pages for the QBC, as well as the Twitter page for the Queens Baseball Convention, broadcast across all of those platforms. We want to see your comments coming in. I've got a fantastic guest today. Of course, this show is dedicated to all things baseball and our beloved and sometimes much beleaguered and much maligned New York Mets. We're going to get into all the stuff opening day, all the things laying over our head right now with the Francisco Lindor contract. And that's where we're going to start right now, as a matter of fact, because I've got a real beef with this whole controversy around Lindor. And I don't think it's what you guys are going to expect, to be honest. Look, the Mets have made him a fantastic offer. It is the third highest contract ever to be handed out in baseball history at $325 over 10 years. It is a fair deal. It's a deal he is not going to be able to do better anywhere else, even if he goes to free agency, not even if he wins the Triple Crown, because there are only a few teams that can hand out that kind of a deal. The Mets are one, the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Cubs, the Dodgers, maybe these new Padres. When you look at it, that's it. The Cubs, the Dodgers, they're going to try to re-sign their own shortstops in Seager and Baez, all right? The Red Sox have Xander Bogaerts, and the Padres just gave Fernando Tatis Jr. a 14-year contract. So that comes down to the Mets and the Yankees. The Yankees may not need him. So it's not about that. I understand you cannot give these guys unbelievably large contracts because they're not going to be good shortstops, not even good baseball players most of the time when they're 39 years old. I understand that. My beef with it is people who want to compare these deals to deals from 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, like our boy Gary Myers did on Twitter yesterday. And this is what's got me so fired up. And I'm going to read you the tweet verbatim. He said, "I remember Mickey Mantle signing for $100,000 for the 1963 season. Francisco Lindor just turned down over $200,000 per game from the Mets. When is enough enough? Not a good look for Mr. Smile, especially in a pandemic." And that thing is so condescending to me, okay? It is not 1963 anymore, okay? You cannot blame Lindor for going out and trying to get what he deserves based on what the market value is. He asked for 12 years, $385. Which is an absurd amount of money. And I understand that we're all hurting. I'm hurting in the pandemic. Everybody is. And so if you look at it in that context, fine. But it's older guys like this that have been gatekeeping Major League Baseball. And it's the reason why baseball is dying. You can't bat flip. You can't have fun. You can't ask for what you need, what you deserve in a contract. All of that is just, it's ridiculous to me. And it is unfair. It's really just a ridiculous premise to start when you're a guy like Gary Myers and you come out and you say something like that. It is not 1963 anymore, and it never, ever will be again, okay? So you have to get over that, and you have to understand that this deal, in the context of baseball 2021, whether he signs for $325 or the Mets give in and give him $385, it has nothing to do with deals from 50 years ago. It has nothing to do with what Mickey Mantle made, okay? And it has nothing to do with the pandemic. The baseball salaries are the baseball salaries. If you don't like them, that's fine. But you can't condescend Francisco Lindor before he even takes an at-bat as a Met. And you know what? That's my rant. That's what I got to say about it. And I think now is the perfect time to bring on our first guest. He is a fantastic dude, great friend, great comedian. He's got a special right now on Amazon Prime called What's the Worst That Happened? Ladies and gentlemen, we're welcoming Chris Monty. Chris,
what's up,
how you doing, man?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me. And
man.
That being said, your rant, which
I wanted you to comment on it right away. I just wanted you to take it away after the rant.
That being said, I have no problem with the contract and all that, but I will have a problem if we get to opening night tomorrow night and this guy's not signed. If we get to Citi Field next week and this guy is not signed, then I will have a problem because it's a king's ransom of money and it's a great deal. And he's, like you said, go play. Does he want to hold out? Does he want to get the 12 years? I mean, I think if I'm the Mets, I think it's a pretty good deal, the 10-year deal. I think I hold steadfast and say, you know what, $325 for 10 years, take it. If you get to Citi Field, and this will happen, and you know this because you're a New Yorker, you're a native like me, you're a borough boy like me. You get to Citi Field with even 5,000 people in the stands, right? Whatever it's going to be, something like that, right? And this guy has no contract. His first at bat, it's going to sound like 20,000 boos coming out of the stadium because the fans will turn if this guy has not signed by next week.
No, I absolutely agree with you on that. And I don't hold the Mets responsible. I don't think the Mets are shortchanging him. I think the deal is more than fair. I think look, like I said, it's the third largest contract ever in the history of baseball. And for the fact that for the Met fans that have suffered like we have with the Wilpons for all those years, for them to be in this kind of a ballpark price-wise for a guy like this is actually amazing. They offered him a great deal. And I think he should take it. I think it is what it is. I don't think they need to go up to the 385, but one of them is going to have to relent here because to your point, this has to get signed. And I won't hold it against the Mets if they jump up another 2 years. I won't hold it against them because here's the thing. You always want to maintain long-term flexibility, right? But that's more in the case of 5 years, 6 years in a row. You're talking about a 10-year to 12-year deal. And 12 years down the line, who even knows where we're going to be? The difference between 10 and 12 is nothing. Just sign the deal.
the guy could get injured in 2 years and be done for his career, like when you look at it, I mean, they're still paying Bobby Bonilla money,
Exactly. An asteroid can hit Earth in 5 years. That's it.
We don't be that
smart. Worry about 12 years from
I'm not worried about to your point, I'm not worried about the 10 or 12. Whatever it is, I'm not going to fault the Mets for whatever it is they do. But I'm going to fault the player if we get to next week and he, hasn't signed. I mean, I think the Mets are smart enough to say, okay, if that's what it's going to take, we'll do it. Because, I believe in Cohen. I'm so happy that he's owning the team now. It feels like we're the new Yankees of the, of New York. So we're going to compete and we're going to go for those big players. But I just feel like, is it really like as an old guy, you referred to the old guy, Gary Myers, but as a guy who's a little bit older than you, is it really, is he holding out for that extra 2 years? I mean, 325 is not enough. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just sign the freaking contract, man.
Yeah, man. Listen, I completely agree with that. And, my commentary is more on, it's an indictment on baseball, really, because, you're a little bit older than I am, but we're both younger guys compared to all the guys that are controlling baseball now. And I just think it's time for some younger people to kind of have their hands in the game because they keep trying to quicken the game up and change the pace of play. And look, I understand maybe the games are too long, but I think that baseball constantly looks for love in all the wrong places. Putting a runner on second base in extra innings, it's not the answer. This is not slow pitch softball. It's the major leagues.
I hate it. I hate that. Listen, I hate that. I'm a big fan of the, I'm not a fan of the DH. I'm a National League Baseball fan. When they went, with everybody plays, everybody hits. That's my theory. And you know what? Okay. National League and the Mets in general in their history have been known for their pitchers being decent hitters. Their pitchers can hit. Even the staff we have now. DeGrom knows how to swing a bat. Syndergaard knows how to swing a bat. They can get you clutch hits. So a lot of those rules, I'm not a fan of. I'm because you're so funny because you're so modern in certain way, but then you're also old school in another way by saying, don't change the game. I like it the way I watched it growing up, and I'm the same way. I don't mind them speeding up the walks to the mound and cutting back on how many times the guy can go out to the mound and the pitcher can come and the coach can come out. I don't actually even mind them coming saying, you bring a guy in, you can't bring a guy in for every batter in this inning like you normally do because it's like, let's go to the bullpen. I'm a fan of, hey man, let the starter go 7-8 innings. And let's cut this nonsense with getting a lefty to face the lefty, righty. I'm against all of that. Let the guy pitch until it's time for the setup man to come in or the closer. Or if he's or like DeGrom. How many times you watch DeGrom get into the 8th inning with 89 pitches and they're going to take him out? You're like, just let him finish the game. He's coasting.
Every time.
Every game, right?
Every single time. No, I agree with you on that. And there are some things that we'll get into some of those particulars in a minute. There are some of the things I disagree with you on. Like, I like the DH. I just think every other league in the world does it now. Like, let's just do it. Yeah. But for me, it's more about the condescension because, like, other leagues know how to market their stars. You know what I mean? Like you'll be in a situation where you see, there are certain offensive linemen. These guys do the grunt work in football. They're not famous. They're not the receivers. They're not the quarterbacks, but you know who they are, right? You still know. Major League Baseball, Mike Trout has been the face of baseball for 10 years. Half the country could hit Mike Trout with their car and they wouldn't even know it was him.
That's where I disagree. Every time he says he's the face of baseball, I go, no, he's not. I go, he's the best baseball player. He's poorly marketed. He is. He's the best baseball player in the league, but he's poorly marketed. Nobody knows who he is. He plays you're in the left coast now. I'm in the East Coast, but he plays out there. Nobody from the East Coast, unless he's playing the Yankees or he's playing the Baltimore or they play the Mets on the East, or we play them there. I don't see Mike Trout, unless it's the All-Star break. That's when I see Mike Trout if he's not injured by then. So it's like, but it's piss poor marketing by MLB. And I don't know if Mike Trout is a guy that wants to be on every billboard and in TV commercials. I remember real quick to take you back. I'm a little older than you. I remember 86. In 86, every friggin' billboard in New York and Long Island had Darryl Strawberry or Dwight Gooden on it. And every TV commercial was Gary Carter or Keith Hernandez. I mean, they were everywhere. You knew who they were. And these were national TV commercials for like big products, beer and other. So it's like, the MLB is missing the ball, dropping the ball with Mike Trout because he should be, and he should go to a team that plays in a better market, than that one team.
And that's my point, though. They kind of drop the ball across the board when it comes to these players, and it's guys like Gary Myers that are like, oh, Mr. Smiles in the pandemic, you can't bat flip. Everything is, you're showing somebody up. And I'm not saying you got to go out there and run the bases backwards when you hit a home run or do cartwheels to home plate. But they don't let them have any fun. They don't let them have any personality, any identity. And I think that's where it's the game really suffers. We got a couple comments going in, so I just want to acknowledge them real quick, post them up here. That is Marissa Callie says, let's go Mets. With you on that, of course. She is watching from San Diego, so she is closer to where I am. Marissa, I am in Los Angeles. Chris is back on the East Coast. And then she's got a question. Where should Trout go next, Padres or Astros? Well, you know what? I mean, I don't know if people are dying to go to Houston in any sport, so I'm going to say not the Astros.
Or the Padres, but I mean, that used to be but if the Padres, like you said before, if they're going to open up their wallet and become a real team, that's not a bad place to be because I've been to San Diego many times, and let me tell you something. It's beautiful every day.
Yeah, man. It is wonderful down there. I'm looking forward to. I've been to Dodger Stadium out here. I've been to up in San Francisco. I have not been to a game in San Diego. I think this year, if I can only go to one game, I think I'm going to go Mets Padres out in San Diego. And then she said, finally, Tatis is that guy now. And yeah, Tatis might be the new face of baseball. I mean, that guy is a legit stud, and he might be the guy. But again, that's my point, is that you got guys out there, some of these old school guys, super old school, that want to stifle that, and I just don't think it's fair. Let the guys play. Let the guys be marketable. Let them show their personality a little bit. So, Marissa, we appreciate all the comments. Keep them coming in. Anybody else? We want to know what you think of the Lindor stuff. We want to know, should he sign? Should the Mets go up 2 more years and give him the $385 for 12? How mad are you going to be? How mad are you going to be if Mets start playing tomorrow and he is not signed? So we want to know all that stuff in the comments. Let's see that. Let's see those popping up. Whether you're on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, we can see them. We'll throw them up on the screen. Chris, let's get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty for the Mets season, right? We'll move on. Let's just say everything is all good in Lindor land. We'll just move on for that for a minute.
Sign tomorrow, and we can just breathe a sigh of relief at 7:10.
So we're looking at we'll go through just the phases of the Mets team. We'll start with the lineup, okay? So the Mets have a really strong lineup, right? And they're projected 1 through 8. Is not the way that I would go, but I want your opinion on it first. So should be Nimmo, Lindor, Conforto, Alonso in the 4-hole, Dom Smith, McNeil, Davis at third base, McCann, and then finally the pitcher's spot. So when you look at that lineup 1 through 8, it is a deep lineup, but is that how you would go if you were the manager? And if so, what is what stands out to you as the most impressive part of that lineup, and what do you think is the worst part of that lineup?
You know what? I don't mind the lineup, John.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually mind the lineup. I don't mind trying this lineup, for the first week or two of baseball and seeing how it goes. Because when you really look at this lineup, I mean, Conforto is Conforto. I love him, but it's like time. It's time to, I don't know what the language barrier is here, but poop will get off the pot with Conforto because he's so streaky. He's so damn streaky, and I love him. But he'll be a guy that goes on a tear and then he disappears for a month. He's striking out and he's swinging for the fences, and that'll change. Rojas will change that as guys get hot and cold. You'll see different people. They'll move guys in and out of that lineup. But when you look at the lineup, I mean, it's a lineup of professional hitters right here. I mean, I feel pretty good about this line. Probably the best lineup I've seen in a very long time. All the way down. Dom Smith, I can't get enough of Dom Smith, and I love Dom Smith. Like, I think he's going to be really, really good. I think that as he gets better, as he ages, he's just going to get so much better. And I wish we could find. I mean, if he's okay in left field, he's not the best outfielder, but he's left field, so it's not like But McNeil, professional hitter. I don't know if I would mess around with McNeil, moving McNeil to another spot. But I don't mind having those solid hitters down at the bottom of the lineup either. So I'm going to say I'll stick with this lineup for now. I'll have a better opinion on it, I think, as we see what happens. Like, I think, if you have me on in a month from now or in the beginning of June, I might say, what the hell's wrong with this lineup? He needs to move this guy here, whatever. I have to see it, but right now as it's written out, I don't mind starting here. I think it's an okay starting point, and I have enough confidence that we'll be able to score runs this way.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because that's kind of how I feel about it. I was a little sour on it from the beginning when I first started seeing them roll out this lineup consistently. And my one beef with it is Nimmo at the top. And it's not that I don't like Nimmo. I think Nimmo's a really good ball player, and obviously he is an on-base machine. But he strikes out a lot. He's not great against lefties. And so I think when you have a guy like McNeil, who is a hitting machine, he does not need to be in the sixth place of any lineup. Any lineup across baseball, McNeil hitting sixth is, he's just not getting enough at-bats, I think, in that spot. So the only thing I would do is I would flip-flop. I would have McNeil up at the top, then Lindor, Conforto, Alonso, Smith, Davis, McCann, and then I would have Nimmo batting eighth. I just think it's a better lineup that way. But I do kind of feel your way, where I'm like, all right, look, let's see 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is, and see how this lineup works. Because I know it's spring training, but in the spring, Nimmo and Lindor, at the top made me eat crow a little bit, because Nimmo was on base for Lindor a lot. And look, Lindor was raging hot, but they scored a lot of runs that way. So maybe I'll be wrong, but.
No, I agree with you on Nimmo. I mean, like, I'm not I like Nimmo because he's a gamer and he loves being here, and he's he's one of those guys. But overall, if you look at the lineup, he's the weakest bat in this lineup. But he can get on base. He can get on base, and you hope that he can learn, to get walked more. Maybe maybe take one for the team on the thigh once in a while. Just get on. And he's the kind of guy that will do that because he's a total gamer. So, but I agree with you. If you have to change it, if it's not working, I wouldn't mind seeing McNeil up there, because he's definitely an on-base machine. McNeil, he's a professional hitter and a professional at-bat every at-bat. He reminds me of when David Wright first came up. David Wright, you get 2 strikes on him and you couldn't get him out when David Wright first came up. And McNeil's like that. You get 2 strikes on him, all like Murphy. You get 2 strikes on this guy and he ain't getting out. You're going to work to get him out,
I actually think that's the second one is a better comp, because Murphy was one of those guys, bat to ball, bat to ball, bat to ball all the time. I think McNeil's a better hitter than Murphy overall, but except for that crazy run he went on for us, and then of course he was real great for the Nationals for a few seasons. But I think if it pans out, I think McNeil will have a better career than Murphy did. But I think that's a really good comp for him, and that's the thing. I feel like he's buried a little bit in the 6 hole. Look, Nimmo's going to get on base. He is going to walk a lot. I think I'd have to look it up to be sure, but I think the last year he played a full season, so not the 60 game season, and not in 19 when he was hurt a lot, but the year before that, I think he led the league in hit by pitch. So, or he was right up there. So he's on base, at a 420.
He's no stranger to getting hit with the ball, and he don't mind it, So
But to that same token, so is McNeil. McNeil got hit like 10 times in the spring alone. So, well, and that's where I feel that the DH, and it's been a conversation all off season long, the DH does benefit the Mets because it helps this team. It gets Dom Smith at first in his natural position. It would have allowed them to move Nimmo to left where he's better. And then Alonso goes to the DH spot and they just become a better defensive team. And that's not why I'm not for the DH just because it makes the Mets better in this one instance. I'm mostly for it because they did it last year and there's a new CBA. So next year they're probably going to do it and it's going to be here to stay. So I just think it's risky to have pitchers not hit for a full season, make them hit this year knowing that they're not going to have to hit next year. That's what I'm worried about.
I'm very old school in the sense that I like baseball. I like the scheme of it. I like how do you defend and what are you going to do? And I'm going to really miss, and I miss it now because these freaking guys don't know how to freaking lay down a bunt to save their lives. And when I was a kid watching baseball, that was one of the best parts of the game. So I'm going to miss it because pitchers today, they don't teach them. And I love the fact that, you get one out and the guy, the 8-hitter gets on, that pitcher can lay down a bunt and get the guy over, and then you're going back to the top. And that's like exciting for me, like to watch that in a 2-1 nail biter game. So that whole aspect of the game that I grew up with is going to be totally gone. You're going to go to the DH and it's everybody hits and you got your big swinging guys up there and you got a 4.5 hour. Listen, I love baseball, but anytime I'm done watching the Met game and it's 9:28 and then I turn on to the Yankee game, it's the 4th inning and it's 9:30 at night. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? Oh, it's, 7-9, and whatever. And I'm like, that I like. There's something to be said about watching the Atlanta Braves of the '90s and those battles, and watching the 2-1 game, the 3-2 game, the 4-3 game, and having a defensively scheme it out and have a guy bunt. Like I like baseball like that. I like it to be right down to the Isn't it more fun to watch a 2-1 game into the 9th inning, whether you're winning or losing, than to watch a 7-0 game? I mean, for your team, you want the 7-0 game for your team, but over the course of the season, you want to see a couple of those really gritty wins, those 2-1, 3-2 wins, and you're going to lose that in the game, and it's going to be gone. I know it's going to be gone, but that's what I really miss. I'm going to miss all of that because it's gone once they get rid of the pitchers and they bring DH in. That it's like bye, old school baseball's gone.
Well, let me ask you a question. I wasn't even going to bring this up, but you made a good point. How do you feel about the shift? Do you feel like guys should be forced to hit the other way, like learn how to do it again? Or
learn how to do it.
Yeah, okay. I figured
you might go only for learn how to do it because you know why? Harkening back to Gary Myers and his old ways, if this was 1963, those guys would learn how to hit against that. They'd learn to hit the ball the other way. That's baseball. Yeah. That's baseball. You learn, you know what? If you're one-dimensional, sorry, man, you're an out. But if you're, two-dimensional, you go, you know what? I'm just going to take the ball the other way. Listen, you're a big Mets fan. I am. I love listening to Keith Hernandez be the color man on SNY. Yeah.
I got his jersey right. I got his jersey right there, framed and autographed.
I was going to wear my Keith Hernandez jersey tonight, but it's a home jersey, so I'm trying to go with the road, starting on the road. I'm one of those sick fans that whatever the Mets are wearing, I got to wear the road or the home, depending on the game. So I'm wearing my road. This is my DeGrom jersey. But what I love listening to Keith, because when you listen to Keith, he tells it like it is, and he's one of those old crotchety guys that's like, well, back in my day, you did this, you did that, you did this. But, those were my Mets. The 80 Mets were my Mets. So I grew up with – those were the last of the old school baseball guys. So those guys were my guys. So I kind of have a kinship to those guys, and so that's why I'm bitching about the DH so much. So, but when it comes in 5 or 6 years, I'll get used to it, and then I'll just stop thinking about it.
Just like everything else, right? Like with time, you start to figure it out. So, and you're just like, all right, I get it. It's cool. I'll go with it.
Just I used to get so mad at the guy that goes to 7-Eleven and pays for like a Snapple with his debit card. And I'm like, doesn't anybody carry cash? It's $2. Like, you don't have $2 on you? And I'm like, no, nobody carries cash anymore because your generation is everything with the swipe and this and the I'm like, all right, whatever.
Right. Yeah, no, I get that. That's actually a really great comp too, just to compare those two things.
It is because it's like it used to piss me off. I'm like, dude, you got $2.50. I'll pay for it. You don't have $3 on you. You got to use your card.
Oh, man. So if you guys are watching this, whether it's on Instagram or on Twitter and on Facebook, keep those comments coming in. We've had a few so far. We want to hear more from you. We're talking about the Mets lineup right now, and that's what we want to know, how you guys feel about it. What do you think is the biggest concern with the lineup? It's obviously very balanced. It's very deep. But what's your favorite part? What's your least favorite part about the lineup? Stuff like that. We want to hear about it. Chris, you and I will move on while people try to get those comments in. We'll move on to the Mets rotation. So obviously, you mentioned you got the DeGrom jersey on. It begins with DeGrom, and then, across baseball, it's DeGrom and everybody else. So saying that the guys after him are, much less than is not an insult on them because he's the best pitcher in the world. So, it's DeGrom, Stroman, Taijuan Walker, Peterson, and Joey Lucchesi, who they got over from San Diego. So, again, same sort of thing. What's your biggest concern with that rotation? And what do you think is the biggest positive, aside from DeGrom, who obviously is the biggest positive you could have?
And really quick, who in my mind is the face of the New York Mets. I was watching an MLB show this morning, and they had Lindor as the face of the Mets. I'm like, first of all, he hasn't even took the field as a Met or signed a contract yet. DeGrom is the face of the Mets.
If he signed the contract, I would say, okay, he signed the contract, so fine.
But he's still at the face of the Mets until he wins us over and does his job. Like, DeGrom has been here, and to me, he's the face of the Mets. But right now, what my biggest concern is Syndergaard going to ever get healthy and just be the guy that we thought he was going to be? Because if he's not, that's a big question for this team. And if DeGrom's got to stay healthy, because everybody else is a question mark. To me, Stroman's a question mark. I think I have a little bit of confidence. These other guys, Lucchesi, Peterson, I have to see. I have to really sit and see, because I have some faith that Stroman will bounce back and he'll be okay. But it's year to year with pitching. It's year to year. The only steadfast that we've had is DeGrom. He's been solid for us, and we know he's going to go out there and he's going to do his job, and God forbid something happens to him, because he can nail you down every fourth, fifth day. He'll nail you down that win you need when you're on that losing streak or you lose. But it's a real question mark with this. How do you feel about Stroman?
I think he's got a lot of potential. I think he's better than, he pitched for us when we got him 2 years ago. He was really inconsistent down the stretch. I don't think he's as good as he was when he pitched for the Blue Jays before we got him in that season. He was pitching on a low 2 ERA. I don't think he's that good, but I also don't think he's as bad as he was, in some of those starts. And to lead into that, I think that my biggest problem with the rotation overall, Syndergaard and Carrasco both being hurt, is that there's no number two in this lineup. There's there's DeGrom, and then I think you got a bunch of 3s and 4s and 5s. Now, maybe Stroman, maybe Stroman and Walker, can elevate their game, and one of those guys, because they're young enough, and especially Walker. Walker's got real good stuff.
I think Walker would be the wild card. I agree with you on Walker.
Yeah, but then the other guys. I don't know. I don't know what we've got. Peterson was pretty good, shortened season, but the one thing I will say that's a positive is depth that we haven't had before. So, we had 2 guys go out and we were able to replace them with Lucchesi. We got, Yamamoto, who's now down in the minors, Corey Oswald, who looked good. And you're going to use 6, 7, 8, 9 pitchers, starting pitchers, the way things go now in Major League Baseball, because guys are going to
every game. It's like insane.
Yeah, guys, they always need a little extra rest, or somebody will tweak something and they'll miss a start or two. So you're going to need these guys to play a role. So it's nice to have actual depth, unlike last year when our wound up where our 3 and 4 starters were Michael Wacha and Rick Porcello, which was like, how could you win with those guys?
No, that was a bad news bears last year. But the same thing. I agree with you 100%. That's why I said, Syndergaard, it's always something with Syndergaard. It's like I've been waiting for this guy, since he came up, and it's always, he had a couple good runs with us in 2015, and then he carried us into the 2016 playoffs. But it's like, if he can come back, but right now, the way it stands, if Stroman can step up and Walker can step up. If we can get 3 guys, to be good, DeGrom's good. So if we can get 2 guys, if we can get like Stroman and Walker to step up and be 2 and 3, solid 2 and 3, and then we just need decency out of 4 and 5 because I think if the bullpen is healthy, I think the bullpen might be able to save us in some games.
It's funny that you say that because that was going to be the next topic of conversation, which is the bullpen, and it's scary. It has been scary before.
It's always scary every year.
The bullpen for the Mets has not been great historically, and this year, as much as they rebuilt the team, because that's the other thing, they rebuilt the bench. The bench is real good now. The bench is deep, and but the bullpen is probably the shallowest part of the team. A lot of people say that they've got a lot of holes on defense, and that's fair. They've gotten better in some areas, maybe worse in some. But when you look at the bullpen, Diaz, a lot better last year. But now we got people back in the building, so a little bit more pressure. He is entrenched as the closer. They didn't go out and get certain guys because they said, we can't promise that you'll be the closer because you're going to have to at least compete with Diaz. Right. So that prevented them from getting some people. So now he's got a little bit more pressure on him. Last year it was a little free and easy. So then you've got Trevor May, who's a good arm. I like signing.
Trevor May. I got a lot of high hopes of Trevor May.
Me too. I think he's got a good personality for New York. He throws hard. I think he'll be a good addition. Castro, who was great all spring, young guy, throws 100 miles an hour, so we'll see. And then, they go and get Aaron Loop, who's going to be the lefty. He had a good year for Tampa, good run with them. I guess it remains to be seen. He's a lefty. We'll see. I would have just brought back Justin Wilson, but that's me. And then then you get into the scary part. Familia, Betances, Gesellman, and Jacob Barnes. I don't know what to do with those guys. I'm not sure. Yeah. I don't want to lump Barnes in with them because to his credit, he made the team out of spring. He had a good spring, and maybe he'll be good. But I'm tired of Gesellman. I'm so tired of Familia. And I think Betances might be done. The guy's throwing 89 miles an hour.
Yeah, he should just become a knuckleballer and just do it already. Like, what is he doing, I agree with you. That's the thing. But here's the point. The bullpen, year to year in every team, the bullpen is a year-to-year thing. 1 year they're great, and then all of a sudden next year you go, holy crap, what happened? We re-signed all these guys and they stink this year. So if we can, like I said before with the starters, I believe in May. I think Trevor May is going to be something. I think he's going to – if he's not the setup man, he may work himself into the closer eventually by midway through the season if Diaz is crapping out, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. But Diaz, I hope Diaz can rebound. He's been – I don't know, this kid, it's all in his head. Is it all in his head, or does he not have the talent we thought he had? Can he just throw the ball hard with nothing on it? I don't understand.
I think it's all in his head. And you know what? To your point, he's got to be good because he's the only – him being good – is the only part of that trade, the Cano-Diaz for Kelenic trade.
Oh, yeah. Who wanted Cano? I didn't want Cano.
No one. And here's the thing. If Diaz isn't good, it goes up there with one of the top 3 worst trades in Mets history.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
If Diaz is good, at least you say, look, you got a young 27-year-old closer. He's a fireballer. He grows with the team. Now, the Mets are in a place financially where, they'll be able to keep guys that are good. So if he's good, it's great. It makes that trade a little less awful. But, if he's not, that trade is horrific. So he's got to be. He just has to.
And this is it. This is the last shot as far as I'm concerned. You can't live and die with him anymore. So I'm banking on if Diaz turns out to be the guy that we think he is, is it like you said, is it because he was playing in front of really nobody paying attention? Camera's out on me. Are we back? Sorry.
You're back. Yeah, you're back.
Sorry about that. If he turns out to be the guy that we thought he was, that we made the trade for, everything else I think will fall into place. I think you'll have your Trevor May setting up. Familia will be a game's over, either getting blown out or winning so big you bring in the Familia just to eat up an inning or two. Loop, Gesellman, those guys, Betances, I don't know. And Lugo, he's going to be out for a little while. So Lugo is one of my, him, I love Lugo.
He's great, yeah.
I love Lugo. So
Gesellman probably doesn't make the team if Lugo does. I think they're going to hope that Gesellman can be kind of a poor man's Lugo in that they both can pitch multiple innings, but the thing is that Gesellman mostly is not effective. He had that really good run that first year when him and Lugo joined the rotation and filled in for folks that went down, and they helped get us, to a playoff berth. But since then, Gesellman's been terrible. He's been completely terrible. So, he really worries me. But I think he's the kind of guy that, if he's struggling when Lugo's ready to come back, Lugo will just take his spot. He's got options. He'll go down. Betances is the one. Betances and Familia worry me the most because I think that there's a real chance, especially with Betances, if Betances is throwing 89 miles an hour and getting rocked all over the stadium, they might designate him for assignment by May. He might not be long for this world. Yep,
absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I figured I was kind of banking on, roll the dice with the guy, new surroundings, new team, and in spring training it just didn't, it's like, all right, this guy's the same turd that we thought he was when he was across town. So I don't know. And for me, like that, same thing for me. It's I'm tired, man. I'm tired. Like, why are you still here, bro?
There was never a reason to bring him back in the first place, I think. But again, this is going back to was the Brody Van Wagenen Mets. It was still Fred Wilpon Mets. They were still doing things on the Oh my God. It's the best thing ever that could have happened was just, shedding that entire it was like exercising the demons.
It was unbelievable. We just need to get our other team to do that, and then we'll be all right.
Yeah, we would be okay if maybe, hopefully, like we talked about on the other show. One thing that does scare me, and since we're talking about Brody Van Wagenen, I like Alderson as a GM. I think he gets a lot of flack, and I don't think he deserves it. But one area where he definitely does deserve it is since he's been with us this time and the previous time, he has not built a good bullpen, and I think that's what scares me the most about our bullpen is the uncertainty because of his track record. His track record. He's the guy bringing in Frank Francisco and. These guys that they were terrible, and there were more arms out there that we could have signed. And there are even still some guys out there. There's a guy, Shane Green, I think is still a free agent. They just lost out on Cishek. Cishek was sitting out there forever, and finally the White Sox scooped him up. But these are quality arms. And, the Mets have some good young arms, guys like Castro, and they bring in a guy like May, but the other guys leave a lot to be desired. And I know Familia is making $10 million, and that's nothing to sneeze at, but man, he's terrible. If you could upgrade, you got to upgrade. You worry about the $10 million later.
Yeah, that's why I wish Colin would get in his ear and be like, as a fan who's got all the money, the guy with the bank who's the fan, and be like, bro, I love what you do, but your bullpen picks slow. It's time to step it up. Can I make a suggestion to you and you listen to me because I'm your boss? I totally agree with you. That's his probably one of his only weaknesses. I mean, he's a pretty good GM, and he's always been a good GM, and he's well liked around the league. And he can get deals done, and he can talk to guys, but he has no vision with the bullpen, which is where I kind of liked, Minaya, because Minaya knew guys, he was a good scouting guy, Minaya, and I kind of miss him for that. I wish they'd let him be. Is he still with I don't think he's with the organization anymore. He was a consultant at one point. Yeah,
so when Alderson came in, when Cohen bought the team, Alderson came in, he basically let everybody go for the most part. And he had let Minaya go, but then I think he may have come back in some kind of weird advisory role or something. But it was strange because Minaya's one of those people, man. He's got 9 lives with us. He just keeps.
It's unbelievable. He wasn't a bad. He was. He's a good baseball guy. He is a good baseball guy. He's a good. He can see talent. He can go down in the minors and he can pick out guys that are going to be here. But yeah, it's the bullpen is a question mark. Like I said, if we can get May and Castro and Diaz, if Diaz turns around, you get May and Castro, and then Lugo comes back. I think those are going to be your 4 guys.
I think so. I think that's probably the best spot that we could be in is getting Lugo back and seeing. And we're talking about negatives and positives of the bullpen, and the comments have been kind of quiet, and that's cool. But if anybody wants to jump in, anything that we've talked about so far is fair game. Whether it's the Lindor contract, whether it's your biggest concerns or positives about the lineup, the pitching staff, the bullpen, whatever it is, throw it in there. If not, you can just listen to us rant about it because that's what we're here for. But I do think the biggest positive of the bullpen has nothing to do with the bullpen at all. And it's just an owner like Cohen, who has a lot of money, who's committed to winning. If this bullpen is terrible, he's going to give the Mets the resources. If the bullpen is standing in their way, they will go out and get guys to try to make it better. Now, it might not work. It might not, sometimes you bring these guys in and they might, shat the bed, but he's going to try. It's going to be there. The money is going to be there to upgrade the team, which, again, with the Wilpons, you always had to wonder, if the Mets are okay at the deadline and they need a piece or two, are they going to go after it? Maybe, maybe not.
If they're 500 or a game or two or 5 under, but they're within reach of the wild card of division by the break, Cohen's going to go, and it's the bullpen is the reason why. Cohen's going to go out and fix it.
I totally agree with that.
It's just like, we were lucky, we were blessed with the myth of Cespedes, who had, who had this amazing, 2-month run for us and took us, and he did. He changed that whole team. And it was wonderful. And after that, it all went downhill. But we had 2015, and I still lose sleep over that series because, again, to my point from earlier, small ball won that series. And, they played small ball. They were a team that played small ball. So when you get these big, that Kansas City team was more like a National League team, the way they played, and that's when the DH comes in and everybody's like the American League. It's going to be crazy. But enough about that. I agree that I think that when we get to that break, we'll know where we are. Well, listen, we'll know where we are. We're Met fans. We'll know by the end of May. Is this team going anywhere? Or they're going to, is it going to be one of those great Aprils and then May and June we lose, 18 out of 20 like we did under Mickey?
That run in May and June was so bad. Like the worst baseball you could ever watch. The only thing that I've ever watched, in my life that was that depressing was probably this past Jets season, where at least like with the Jets, you were like, okay, Sunday's over. I can forget about it. I can completely forget about it for until next week. With the Mets, it was every night. You're like, they're going to lose. I just know they're going to lose. They're going to find a way to lose. Something's going to happen. They're going to lose. And they would. And that's just what would happen every single time. It's so frustrating.
And then they go on a run. And then the Mets go on a run after July. They go on a run for the rest of the season. And you're like, what happened to May and June? And the Jets season, to me, only got depressing when they won last year. Because I wanted Gase gone from the first day, So we know we talk about that on the other show, but
that's true. And if it wasn't for that May and June that the Mets had, they would have made the playoffs, going away. They were
going away.
So
the second half of the league, one of the best teams in the National League. It's like what. But you put yourself in such a hole, you can never climb out of it. So that's
there's no way to get out of it. No, not at that point.
This year is going to be about it. It's going to be about health. It's going to be about guys staying healthy. Does Syndergaard come back in 60 days and Lugo come back in 60 days and contribute to the team the way we need them to? Because we really need Syndergaard coming back and being Syndergaard. He can't come back and get blown out of the water. Or, be pulled out in the third or fourth inning. So I think that's going to be a big part of this year. Is Lindor signed? Are we healthy? And going forward, I think, we'll know in a month. You know how it is. The first day of baseball, well, it's like it almost feels like the first day of football, right? The first day of baseball, you're like, you win or lose that game. You're like, oh, whatever. Or you're so excited, and then you're like, wait, we have 160 some odd more games, where in football, if you lose 0-1, you're like, you know what, this is going to be a tough season,
Yeah. Well,
but in baseball, we get so excited after 1-0 because the Mets always win the home opener. We're like, yeah, we're 1-0. And then all of a sudden, like, wait, relax, dude, it's April 1st,
So let me ask you a question because you kind of brought this up. We've danced around it a little bit, and I don't want the cop out of let's see how they play this year, because that is a fair assessment of it. But aside from Lindor, who would you, if you could only give an extension to one other person right now today, would it be Conforto, Syndergaard, or Stroman?
Oh, Conforto.
Okay.
Because, and that's a tie. Maybe that's a little bit of a tie, or close to Syndergaard. Not Stroman for me, out of those three guys.
Okay.
I love Conforto because I'm rooting for Conforto every year, man. It's like he's a homegrown So is Syndergaard. But Syndergaard, I don't know. I think Syndergaard's got a little chip on his shoulder. He's got a little ego thing. I thought he was going to be the guy, and DeGrom's the guy. And I don't know if that bothers him, but that has nothing to do with why he's been getting hurt and everything. But, Conforto's the guy, though, that I've been waiting for as that next Met that's like a homegrown dude. And, he's right there. Like, you see, man, when he's on, bro, right? He's untouchable. He's got this beautiful swing, and he's making catches in the outfield, and he's hitting. But then he just goes into these unbelievable, he doesn't look like he knows what he's doing at the plate some months. And you're like, what is he doing this week? He's so streaky. And I hope that he's not going to be that streaky guy, but I think that that's what we're going to have to live with. We'll have to live with that guy that he's going to be on a 2-week, 3-week run of see, Conforto, I told you, that's why we signed him. And then, a week later you're going, why the hell do we extend this piece of crap? He's that guy that's going to frustrate you so much. But I can't help but root for Conforto because, he's a homegrown dude, and he just, I just love him. He just looks like a Met.
Yeah, and he's got a little bit of David Wright in him. He's got a captain's vibe in him. He really does. And to the credit, the way the Mets are currently constituted, there's a lot of guys who have that kind of grit. Pete Alonso's got it. Dom Smith has it. Jeff McNeil has it. There's a lot of people who on this team who really have that kind of that fiery, and it's a little bit of both. It's fiery and it's lead by example, and it's, the kind of person that you could see with the C on their chest. So,
and that's why I love Nimmo, as though we don't think he's the hitter that, whatever, but Nimmo has that in him too. Like the only thing that wants me to keep Nimmo around is because he has that Mets fire. He's the guy that will run into the wall for you,
Yeah, I can totally get behind that. I think, the guy that you have to extend to answer my own question is probably Conforto. So I would agree with you there. Not just because of what I said about the captain and that whole vibe, but I also think the Mets made a choice this offseason. I think it's the only choice that they really, really locked themselves into, which was Conforto, not George Springer. And they decided that they didn't want to be locked in long-term to two players who were eventually going to have to be corner outfielders. Because Springer at 31 years old, probably a center fielder for another year or two. And I think they didn't want to have that where they've got to find another center fielder and they're paying over $100 million to two corner outfielders plus the Lindor deal and, the DeGrom deal and everything else. I think they were like, look, it's Springer now or Conforto long-term. So I think they have to go ahead and make that move.
And he's a fan favorite, and it's like as long as he produces, Springer, Conforto, if that comes down to that, we're all going to be Conforto. And then all the Met fans love him. And as long as he, like I said, he frustrates you because you root for him so hard that when he's up, when he got 2 outs, 2 on in scoring position, and Conforto's at the plate, and it's you're down a run. And then he strikes out. You're just like, you're sitting there. You're like, oh, God, this is it, Conforto. I know you can do it, And then all of a sudden, it's like, damn, But he's got our hearts, and that's why I think I would say 90% of the Met fans would agree with this conversation that he's got to be the guy. And believe me, we want Syndergaard. We want him to be good. I don't know about you. I want Syndergaard on this team. I was there in 2016 at the playoff game against San Francisco, the one playoff for the playoffs. He pitched his lungs out that night, and he wouldn't have came out unless he was done. And he was done, but I don't know what's going on with him. It just seems like there's always something. It's always an injury, or he comes back and he's just not the same guy. He's got to learn to be like DeGrom changed his style of pitching. After the first couple seasons, he spoke with Smoltz and he learned. Go play golf every day. Get that arm swinging on the golf course because it helps out. Do the things the old school guys did. That's why DeGrom could go out there. He's got a rubber arm. He can go out there and pitch 8 innings every night if you want to. Right? Yeah, he can be down 3-0 with 89 pitches, and you go, leave DeGrom in because he's better than the bullpen.
DeGrom is fantastic like that. I mean, he's a guy, he seems like he's got a rubber arm. Oh, and by the way, his average fastball velocity is like 98.7. So
insane,
He really brings it. We do have a couple comments coming in, so I want to acknowledge him real quick. Keith Blacknick, who is the guy who has given me the keys to the city for the QBC channel to do this show. So thanks, Keith. He said I might be catching feelings for catching feelings. So I appreciate that. That means that we haven't screwed up too bad, Chris. It means we're on the right track. And then I knew he was going to say this since he's tuned in. He said Syndergaard is not cut out for New York. Keith and I have talked a lot about it. He's not a big Syndergaard fan. I disagree with him. I'm more on your side with regards to Syndergaard. I think he needs to take a little bit from DeGrom, and that's one of the reasons why I have a little bit of high hopes for Stroman. If you follow Stroman on social media, you see he like fanboys over Jacob DeGrom, and I think that's going to help him, be a better pitcher because he's sitting there and he's watching him. He's like, wait, what does DeGrom do? How does DeGrom throw his changeup? I think when you see stuff like that out of a guy like Stroman, it really goes a long way. So I think if Syndergaard would do a little bit more of that and just kind of, see what DeGrom does that makes him – it's not going to change, the kind of pitcher he is, but Syndergaard has great stuff already. He's got better stuff than Stroman. Up until 2 years ago, I would have said he had better stuff than DeGrom. But now
and there's moments in games where he has better stuff than DeGrom. There's moments of it, but DeGrom is longevity. The thing, and I'm telling you, man, this is the thing. It's ego. I think there's an ego there, and I think that's what actually hurts Syndergaard is that ego. I disagree with that. He's not made for New York. He's already proven he's been good. I mean, he carried us in 2016, when DeGrom got hurt, and in 2015 we got to the series. He was a part. Without him, we're not getting there and all that. He's got the bones, to be there in New York. It's the ego thing. It's now he's getting injured. Has he learned? I think he's learned a little bit that finesse is a little bit more than speed, in his game. But it all comes down to that attitude and that ego. Where DeGrom is like he's the best pitcher in baseball, but you wouldn't know it to talk to the guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
it's like I heard from people, man, like when you talk to Syndergaard, he's got a little bit of that, well, I'm the guy. I'm supposed to be the guy. That kind of attitude, It's like, it's fine. Be the guy. Do it. Stop talking shit. Do it.
Well, you know what? You might agree with this. Keith, still active in the comments, says David Wright needs to throw out Syndergaard's lunch again. That might check his ego a little bit.
Maybe DeGrom should do it,
You know what, Keith? I think we both, even though we disagree with you a little bit on Syndergaard, I think we would both agree with that sentiment. This is something that I know, we're just a quick tangent off before we talk about the series, because we haven't even gotten into it. It's been jam-packed. They're bringing back the black jerseys. You're an old school guy. How do you feel about it?
I never liked them when they brought them in. I was not a black jersey fan. You like the black jerseys, Chris? I'm talking to my producer here, my film guy on my end. He likes the black jerseys. I never liked the black jerseys. So I know you probably like them. I'm not even gonna. Don't even tell me. I know. Guy growing up in the '90s as a young man probably loved the black jerseys. But let's put it this way. I'm not a huge fan of the third jersey. Okay. You know who doesn't have a third jersey? Rarely, you never see a third jersey. The Yankees. You know why? Because they don't need it. They got the pinstripes and they got the road grays. I wish the Mets would wear the road grays and the pinstripes at home, and even the white jersey at home without the pinstripe. Don't need it. We don't need it. Just wear the pinstripes at home and the grays on the road. We don't need all these jerseys. If you're gonna do a third jersey, the only one I did like was the blue one that they would normally wear in spring training. Then they brought it into the team. I actually have a DeGrom blue jersey. The only reason I have it is because I won it at some benefit I was doing. But I wear it and I won't get rid of it because it's a Mets jersey. But I'm not a big fan of the black jersey. But it's not going to ruin me for the Mets. It's not going to sour me on the Mets. Just like, listen, I don't like the Jets went to the green helmet and the green jersey. I like the white helmet, white jersey Jets. So I'm old school like that with my team. So I'm sure you like. Go ahead. You can say how much you love the black jersey. I'm sure. Well, I'm just guessing, John.
Well, before I get to that, I want to shout out Keith again. He said, "Man, I like this Chris Monty guy. The black jerseys are so meh. He hates the black jerseys."
I'm not a fan, man.
He absolutely hates them. Keith,
I hate the Jets black jerseys too.
Yeah,
awful.
So I'm gonna surprise you with this. I actually kind of agree with you. I never liked the black jersey when they had it because I thought that they wore it too much. I'm okay with the third jersey. It was just every night it was black jersey. Every night it was black cap. I like the blue and the orange, and they had de-emphasized the blue and the orange so much that it was like, this isn't even the Mets anymore. Then they added the black drop shadow. Black infiltrated their whole scheme. So I do think that the third jersey is better being the blue one that it is now. I think it speaks to the Mets. That's the Mets colors. So I never did like it. I do like it more now as something that they'll bring back every once in a while. So the talk is, and it's not confirmed, that they're going to do, Friday night home games will be like Friday night blackout. And if that's the case and they're going to do it just then, okay. Look, it's Piazza and David Wright and Reyes and a lot of teams, a lot of guys on good teams wore those jerseys. So I'm okay with it now more so than I was when they first brought it out. When they first brought it out, I actually hated it.
And what I hate even more is when you get those games on Sunday and they're wearing a camouflage uniform, or they're wearing an all orange jersey, and you're like, all right, wait, what's this now? I thought it was just a black jersey. Well, what is this uniform? Or they're wearing these ridiculous, it's like when the Jets wear the Titans uniforms. You're like, who is that? Where were the Jets? They're not playing tonight? Like, it's like, point. Let's just sell the lousy jersey. Like, that's all it is. It's all marketing. But, yeah, I'm old school. When I grew up, it was you wore the home uniform and the road uniform, and that was it. And I understand today they got to make money. They want to sell more stuff. So let's make the green St. Patrick's Day Mets hat, all right. So they gotta sell crap. But you know what I hate when I see a guy in the subway and he's got the Yankees hat, but it's all red, and I'm like, what is that? Like, what's the red Yankee hat? Like, I never, the Yankees would never wear that, but they'll sell it, but the team will never wear it on the field, But
they get a little too crazy with the extra things, and it's funny because when it all first started, like going back 100 years, literally, they wore the home whites and the road grays because they thought that the gray jerseys would be easier to clean and launder. Yeah. And, the facilities that they would have to use on the road weren't the home team's facilities. So they were like, oh, it'll be easier to clean gray jerseys than white ones. So it's like such this innocent, logical thing of yeah, you wear white at home, gray on the road. And, I like the other stuff, but I always want it to be in the color scheme of the team. And so I wasn't on board when they brought out the black jerseys at first, but now it's a part of our team's history. And so if they want to pop them up every once in a while, to me, it's like wearing a throwback, like the 80s jersey with the racing stripe and stuff. I like those jerseys. So
I don't mind. The team hated them, by the way. Keith Hernandez talks about they hated them. But you know what? That was my Mets and that wasn't like my father's Mets or the 60s Mets. But here's the bottom line, John. It's all for marketing, right? It's like sell this, sell that, sell this. You know what sells your jersey? Win championships. And everybody will want to wear in New York that jersey. Just win. And it doesn't matter what the team wears, they're going to buy it. Because you know why? The Patriots have been wearing that same stupid uniform since Bill Parcells changed it, whatever. And and everybody in New England wears that. So just win. The Yankee fans, navy blue hat, white logo, simple. Everybody wears it in New York. Why? Because they win. Just win, and this can stay. We don't need black jerseys.
You're 100% right. And, it's funny. Keith said this a couple minutes ago, but I want to shout it out. We were right in the middle of it. It's right on your point. I can't wait until the win percentage for the black jerseys is awful.
And I think that's the reason they wore them, because in the late 90s, they wore them in the playoffs. Yeah. They were wearing the black jerseys in the playoffs. I'm like, you know what? Wear them in the regular season, but even now, when you get to the playoffs, just wear the traditional jerseys in the playoffs.
Yeah. I don't have a beef with what you're saying. All right, let's because we've been on for almost an hour, so let's get into the nitty gritty of really what this show is supposed to be about. We had so much stuff to talk about with just opening day and the offseason stuff and Lindor, but let's look at this series versus the Nationals real quick. So opening day tomorrow night on ESPN, not on SNY, which sucks because the ESPN broadcast is garbage.
Which sucks. I'm going to hate watching that game. I'm actually going to mute it and have the radio broadcast on because that's how much I hate listening to. I can't listen. A-Rod, nice guy, good baseball player. I don't want to listen to you tomorrow night. I do not. I want to hear my guys. And so I'm going to hear my guys on the radio. That's all I'm watching it.
I'm not sure he's a nice guy, but I agree with everything else.
I don't know if he's a nice guy. Yeah, he's probably a piece of crap. I don't really know him, so I don't want to, but I want to hear my guys. I want to hear Keith. I want to hear Gary. I want to hear my guys, so I'm going to be listening to Howie on the radio, and that's how I'm going to watch it. Even if it's on delay, even if the radio is behind my TV, I don't care.
No, that's fair. I do agree with you on that. It is a terrible broadcast. I also think, like, ever since the stuff with A-Rod where he almost bought the team, which thankfully he didn't, but, like, just stay away from, I don't want you anywhere near doing these games. I don't want it. I don't want you. No, I don't. Nobody needs this. Nobody. Who is that for? Like, you tried to buy the team, then you tried to, like, undercut Cohen, and they were trying to do backdoor deals with Jeff Wilpon, that piece of garbage. It's like, dude, we don't need this. Just go away. Like, there's a million people that work for ESPN. We have to have A-Rod.
And even any of it. I love when, 3 times a year, if we're lucky, we're the Sunday night game of the week on ESPN, and everybody in the country is watching the Mets play, either the Yankees or the Braves or whatever. But I can't stand the commentary, even if it's not A-Rod. When you get used to your guys, you want your guys. And you know what? Our guys are fair. I will say that. When you listen to our guys, they're fair guys. Keith Hernandez will rip the Mets as much as rip the other team and say good things about either side. When you listen to the ESPN guys and the Mets are on, it's like whoever's playing the Mets don't exist. They're just playing against a minor league team, and you got to listen to that. I can't listen to it. So I hate the Sunday night. I always look forward to, Sunday night baseball in the summer. I can hang out barbecue all day. Then I got a game at 8:15, and it's the Mets. And then you got to listen to this. And I'm like, the same thing. I go, you know what? Tell my wife, mute it, put the radio on. We'll listen to it on delay on the radio because at least we'll listen to Met guys call it the way it should be.
Yeah, no, I cannot agree with you more. It's the perfect way to put it, and it's unfortunate that we have to deal with ESPN for the opening day broadcast. You kind of get used to it on Sunday nights, like you said. Like, it's cool that they're on and it's prime time and the whole country watches. Great. But like opening day, like I want my guys doing opening day. That part aside, great pitching matchup, one that we've seen a lot on a lot of opening days. Scherzer, DeGrom. Scherzer, he's on the back nine now, but he's still a real good pitcher. DeGrom overtook him for best pitcher in baseball a couple of years ago. But it's going to be great. It's going to be something to watch. And I think throughout the whole series, you're going to get a real early look at some of the things that we talked about with the Mets lineup and how deep it is and how good it can be because, it's a test. It's Scherzer, Strasburg, Patrick Corbin, boom, 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 right out of the gate. 3 real good pitchers, 3 of the best pitchers in the National League. So that's something to look for. Plus, with Corbin, he's a tough lefty. And you're going to see, do they change the lineup around? Do they leave Nimmo at the top? Does Conforto stay in the 3 spot? Do they do some things? Do they get one of those right-handed outfielders, either Pilar or Almora out in the game? Like, what do they do and how does it change? So you're going to see a lot of their early thinking for probably, let's say, till Memorial Day. I think in this series, you're going to see a lot of that play out in just those 3 games. Absolutely.
And you're going to see, we're going to kind of really see what Rojas is going to be made of as a manager because – last year was a tough year with everything that happened. It wasn't a normal year in baseball. It wasn't, it was an abbreviated season, and it was just a mess, just trying to get it even going and everything. Now you're going to have the full season, and you're really going to, and I like Rojas. I want to see what he's made of. I think he's a good baseball man. So I'm really excited about seeing how he's going to manage. And it's just the first series out of the gate, but it's a serious series because it's against your division rival who's going to be a good team between us and the Braves and the Nationals. That's going to be, and you can't never discount the Marlins. It's going to be a tough division, I think. And you're going to see how Rojas manages this series and what he does. And he's kind of coming in on a handicap because he doesn't have his top big 3, to start, because he's got, DeGrom. Too bad DeGrom can't pitch the whole series,
Yeah, I mean, look, it's that's the other thing that's tricky is that this is definitely far and away the best division in baseball. I mean, you didn't even mention the Phillies, and the Phillies are much improved. They're running it back with a lot of guys last year. It didn't necessarily work with guys like Gregorius and Real Muto. They brought these guys back, but between Philadelphia and the top of the league is definitely the Braves because they won it last year. But you look at the Braves, the Mets, the Nationals, the Phillies, and like you said, the Marlins are always pesky. They're not as good. The problem is they got to play all these other teams, but. When you look at it, this is a really deep division, and it is going to be an early test for the Mets for sure. And another thing I think that's an X factor to look at is the Mets and the Nationals are both sort of in the same position because they're both hurt by the fact that there is no DH. So the Mets starting left fielder is going to be Dom Smith, and the Nationals starting left fielder is going to be Kyle Schwarber. two guys that, are best suited not playing that position, however you want to shake it out. So, defense might be a test real early in these first 3 games.
Absolutely. That's what you're going to see. And, like I said, I wish there was a position for, like you said, if you get the DH, then you can move Dom Smith in and he can be at first base where he belongs. But it's that, we're going to see how it plays out. Like, that's one of those things that you got to live with what you got. That's the hand you got. But you hope that, Dom can pick up all the pieces out there and he's a good athlete and hopefully he can get better at that position. As long as he's swinging the bat well, he's going to be in the lineup and he's going to be that guy every day. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
No, I totally agree with you there. And I think you're gonna see how these teams are tested early on. Not only the Mets, but the Nationals too, because it's gonna be tough. It's such a tough division where you're not gonna be able to go on any kind of sustained losing streak. You're not gonna be able to, go in and be like, oh well, I've got 3 with the Phillies and then 3 with the Braves and a quick 2 game with the Nats. Like you got to win those games if you want to be where you want to be at the end of the year. Winning a division or, at least one of the wild cards in play for that playoff spot, you're going to have to beat these teams in your division consistently because you're playing so much. So it's going to be a test for them, no doubt. With that, where do you think – so wrap up the series. We're at the end of the weekend. It's Sunday night. Where do you think the Mets are? What's their record after this first series?
I'm going to go, as a true Met fan – 1-2, and that's actually good because the Nationals are no pushover, and they got to have the pitching advantage in the long run. Because you got Stroman, and then who's pitching Game 3? Is it Peterson?
Game 3 is probably going to be Walker.
Oh, Walker. So so you got Walker in Game 3, but you never know what can happen. I mean, but I'm gonna just as a conservative guy that's used to losing, I'm going to say 1-2, and I'm hoping it's not 0-3, and I hope it's 2-1. I don't think it would ever be 3-0, but I'm going to go 1-2. I think we're going to get out of the gate tomorrow with DeGrom. I think that's our best chance to win the first game, and then from there it's gravy. If you can get that first game, you hope to get that second game and come out of the series. And I always say this: win 2 games every week, every series. You win those 2 games every series, and you build it up, and then you get on that little winning streak where you win 6, 7, 8 in a row, but you try to win those 2 out of 3 all the time. Get the first one. That's the most important one. You always want to play from ahead. So I think tomorrow we get that win, and we could easily come out of the series 2-1. But I'm just, as a Met fan, 1-2. I'll take 1-2 to start the season with the pitching staff because, to be honest with you, I might have more faith in Walker right now than Stroman. I don't know what Stroman's going to be.
Mm-hmm. No, that's all fair.
Because the Stroman start, to me, seems like inning 5, bullpen, and what are we getting, No,
that's entirely fair. I feel very similar to you as far as it goes. I'm going to be optimistic and say that they're 2-1 come Sunday night. I think that, tomorrow, I think they're going to get the win. Look, it's DeGrom. It's your best chance to win every time he pitches. So, they're in one of those positions where you have to win. You have to win when DeGrom pitches. DeGrom deserves better, but the team needs to let him be the ace. So you have to go out there and perform when your ace is on the mound. After that, I think you just they have to figure out a way to pull out one of the next 2 games. And I said it was Walker in Game 3. I guess it's still a little up in the air because they might want Walker to just break up the lefties rather than have Peterson and Lucchesi going back-to-back. So I don't think they've announced it, at least not when we went live. I can't really look at it now. But, I do think there's a better chance that they get out of there with 2 wins if it is Walker. I think, hard thrower, a big spot. I just have a little bit more faith in him than Peterson. And I like Peterson, but I just have a little bit more faith in him. But I think they find a way to pull out that second game. Nationals bullpen is better, but they're another team that they've had a real bad bullpen historically. Even the year they won the World Series, their bullpen was garbage, and they cobbled it together by putting starters in the bullpen and figuring it out. So, they're a team that you can get to. And I think they're fairly evenly matched with the Mets. So, I think the team that makes the less amount of mistakes will come out the winner. And I'm just being optimistic and saying the Mets will be 2-1 on Sunday.
Yeah, no, I have no problem with that. I think it easily be 3-0. I mean, something can happen and you go, wow, we swept them. But,
Yeah.
1 and 2 for me because I'm just used to losing.
Okay, so this is the perfect time to bring up my last question for you, which you're the only guest I'm going to do this with. I'm not going to, because the season hasn't started, so I'm not going to like run this back every time. Maybe next time you're on, we could talk about what how we're trending or whatever. But the official
in June when we're like fire us.
Yeah, exactly. The official line for the Mets, the over/under is 90.5. 90.5 wins. Do you think over or under?
It's funny because I wrote down a number because you texted me earlier and you said, this is what we're going to talk about, over under. So I wrote down, I didn't know that stat. I didn't look that up. I didn't look at the Vegas line. I didn't look at any of that. I said, I just want to come up with my own number. And my man, my cameraman here, my boy can attest. I wrote down 90 for the Mets. I wrote down, I think they'll win 90. So now, being the fact that it's the I'm sure you'd give me the Vegas line or the professional gambling line, 90.5. Yep. I will. You know what? And again, this is not another crapshoot because it all depends on health and who's going to be injured and whatever. But if you're banking on Syndergaard coming back and Lugo coming back and everybody on the field, our main guys staying healthy throughout the season, I'm going to say over. I think we can hit 91, 92 wins.
Okay. I'm actually going to go with you on that. It's a really challenging. Sometimes the over-unders, even the Vegas ones, they're kind of easy. Obviously they're designed to be challenging because it's a betting line. But, sometimes they're just kind of you look at it, you go, man, that's definitely not that good. Or that team's definitely whatever. With the Mets, there's 90.5 because they're going to be right there. They're good enough to be right there. You wrote down 90, and that's that would be an under, but man, it's right there. I think The Mets are a high 80s, low 90s win team as currently constructed, depending on the way the ball bounces. I'm going to go over as well because, there are certain metrics that had them down as the division winner. And I think this division is so tough that if they're going to win the division, they're going to have to get over 90.5. So they're going to have to be over the 90 mark. So I'm going to go over based on that. A little bit going with my heart because I want to see them there. But also, again, going back to what I said about the bullpen earlier, just the ability to add to this team. If the team is in contention, they're going to go out. If J.D. Davis is a problem at third, they'll go out and get Chris Bryant. They'll go out and get a third baseman that's available. Suarez from Cincinnati. I don't know who's going to be available come midseason, but they will go out and get somebody. So I think that plus the fact that, again, to finish where they want to finish, they're going to have to be over that. So I'm going to go with you on that. I'm going to go with the over.
Yeah, I think it's going to be – listen, it is a tough division, and it's a shame because the team could win 89 games and not make the playoffs. It could be that. If Atlanta and Washington play to, where we think they're going to be, and you got 3 teams, vying for, the title and one of them in the wild card, it's going to be really tough. But I think, we could be there. And that's not to say we can win 89 and 90 games and still not get in if Atlanta and Washington are that good. But I think there'll be a fall off on one of those teams. I don't think it's going to, what I'm saying? There's always a fall off. You never know about injuries, like I said, with anybody. So you got to play the games. And you got to play out the schedule. So, but praying that we don't suffer because the Mets have been marred with injuries. It never ends, so I'm hoping that we have an injury. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it never ends. We're already starting the season without Syndergaard and Lugo. And it's 2 key pieces to the team. So it's so you hope that we can get through the season unscathed with bad injuries, and those 2 guys come back with and healthy for the rest of the year. So 91, 92, that should be an attainable goal, right?
It has to be. And neither one of us really mentioned it because we were both talking about the division, which is what you should want to do. You want to win the division, not be one of the wild cards. But when you look at just the National League versus the American League, the American League is real down. It's the Yankees and everybody else. Tampa took their routine step back because they traded off a bunch of guys. They let go of Snell and they let Charlie Morton walk. And, they'll be good, but I don't know if they're going to be as good. Toronto's on the rise, but who knows if they even know how to win yet. I think Houston took a slight step back, the Astros, because Verlander had Tommy John. You look out in the West, who's really out there in the AL West? There's not a ton of teams. The Red Sox still aren't really trying yet. So
you got the Yankees and everybody else right now, right? You got the Yankees. You got. I'm trying to think of who else in that division is going to step up with the Yankees, and because Boston's not there. Yeah, it's a question mark. So the Yankees will be good. Because the worst they ever are good. Right? When they're average, they're still good. There's seasons we would have taken their average, 10 games, 5 games above 500, not making the playoffs, but, we would take that a lot of seasons. Yeah. So the Yankees are going to be there. They're going to be good. I think they're the team to beat in the American League. You can't, right?
Absolutely. But that's what I'm saying. When you look at the Mets need to be near that 90 mark or over that 90 mark, because then when you look at the National League, not only in their own division, but, you've got the Braves, you've got the Nationals, you've got the Phillies. They're going to be pesky. Then you look in the Central, Milwaukee is a bit of a formidable team. Their pitching's not great, but, they're going to do damage out there. Then you got the Cubs. There's some wonder if whether or not the Cubs are actually trying to win this year or not. If they're looking to the future, fine. But they still got a lot of talent for this year. They still have a lot of talent before Rizzo and Baez and Bryant are all free agents. And then you look out west, out here, and you got the Dodgers and the Padres that are legit. And when you compare the National League to the American League, there's just so many more teams that can make the playoffs. So I think if the Mets want to make the playoffs in any way, shape, or form, I think they have to be over 90. You have to take all the guesswork out of it. Just win.
Can't have those May and June snooze months that they've had like every year for like the last decade, it feels like, where they just, they blow them out in April and then they just go to bed for 2 months and then come back in July. All right, we're ready to play baseball.
Yeah, you're like, where were you? Where were you last month, man? You gotta, it's.
But I don't think it'll be like that. The energy is changing the building with the new owner, and I think they know that, and they're playing for a guy that wants to win and wants them to win and is rooting for them. And I think it's going to be a whole different atmosphere if we don't, get to the promised land this year. I think it's going to be we're going to be that team like the Yankees go with this owner as long as he stays rich. And they can, has bottomless pockets. I think we're going to be that team that's going to be in contention and always be good. And the worst will be is good, where we're like, all right, we didn't win a World Series, but we won 89 games. We were over 500, and you're in it until the last month. That's what you want. You want to get to September with meaningful baseball and a chance to, to go to October.
Yeah, well, because the playoffs in baseball become such a crapshoot, not as much as in the NHL where it's just like, a free-for-all. The worst team can beat the best team, and it's kind of crazy. But it is more of a crapshoot now than it's ever been, and that's the thing. The Mets have always been boom or bust successful forever, for their entire history. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Then they go on this run in the late 60s to 73. Then after that, they're garbage again till the mid-80s. Then they're just on the outside looking in. They win the World Series in 86. They probably should have been to more World Series. If there was a wild card, they definitely would have made the playoffs more. But then, come 90, right down again till 99 and 2000. Then it was back up. And then after that, they're bad again till 06 and then not again till 15. So, it's just been boom and bust, boom and bust. And so I'm with you on that. It's just all you can expect or all you can hope for now at this point is consistency, winning, year in and year out, being in the conversation. And I do think with this owner and with this group that's in charge, I do think that that's where they're going to be.
If I'll sign up right now for over the next decade of my life, because as I'm getting older, it's going to get, less time on the planet. If you can give me 1 to 2 World Series championships and be in the playoffs every year for the next decade, and even if you give me 1 World Series, but in the playoffs every year from now until the next, 9 years, it's a good run. I want 2 World Series, but I'll take 1 and always in the playoffs. We got October baseball every year. That's, then you're like the Yankees, every year,
I completely agree with you. And I don't think it's unrealistic in this market, in a sport that is not capped, with an owner that has this kind of money. And it's not about the money with the players on the field either. It's the putting the money into the infrastructure of the team, which is one of the places that the Wilpons always failed. They never put money into analytics. They never put money into the scouting department. The Mets had one of the smallest scouting departments in all of baseball. And it's like, dude, they're a New York team. They should be trying to find the next guy, who's, they're going to sign as a 15-year-old in the Dominican. They should be trying to get the guy like, hey, you know what? We've got deep pockets. We could turn around and sign a guy who defects from Cuba. You don't know if he's going to be a big star here, but like we can throw the money at him like the A's did with Cespedes. And it wound up being terrific for them.
Right.
But, the Mets were never in play for Cespedes because they're like, oh, I think his first deal was like 3 years, $30 million. And they're like, too much for us. It's like, dude, you got outbid by the A's because the Mets couldn't absorb sunk cost. And the Mets, so they couldn't do what the Yankees did. And if a guy came here and was terrible, they had no choice. They had to just hold on to him. And they couldn't even do what the A's did because the A's had a better scouting department. So the A's looked at Cespedes and said, hey, this guy's not going to fail. We can invest our limited resources in him because he's going to outplay this contract. And the Mets were like, well, we don't know if he's going to do that. And then if he's bad, we can't even cover it. So, and those days are over. So I think now we are trending towards the decade that you mentioned. I hope so.
I hope so. That's what you hope. When you got this guy, we all were rooting for this guy to be the owner. And when you got him, you're like, all right, now you got a fan who's got $14 billion in his pocket to go, all right, I just want to win baseball games now, and I'm going to make money while I do it because when you win, you make money. So, the Wilpons were afraid of, making money. And they were wherever their other business was, that's where they made their money. Baseball to them was a write-off.
Yeah, and they're gone, and we never have to talk about them again.
They'll always be talked about because I'll tell you right now, if I ever on the street corner in like Manhattan or something and I see Jeff Wilpon, I'm going to slap him right in his ugly face. Backhand right across his mouth. That's for all the years I wasted on you.
Chris, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you for being my first guest on this show and talking to me for over an hour about the team that we love and for always talking to me online about the teams that we both root for.
I know, right? It's almost draft.
Yeah, we'll probably have to get you back on that show too when the draft comes around.
I'll come back,
Chris,
whatever you want, brother. I appreciate you having me. It means a lot, and you're my West Coast brother from New York City, baby.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. You got anything? Any shows coming up? I know shows are coming back, and they're not, and they're kind of. But like anything you want to promote that you want to tell the fans about?
Well, shows are coming back. I'm not going to be anywhere for anybody on the West Coast. I won't be out there for a while because I usually work out in Vegas and I do some stuff in LA here and there. But locally, any New Yorkers watching the show, the Governor's Comedy Clubs are opening back up on Friday. I'll be at Governor's in Levittown this Friday, April 2nd. It's an all-star show. Joey Cola, Chris Roach, Kevin Downey Jr., myself, Mick Thomas. It's going to be a big night. It's the grand reopening. It's 5 headliners. Other than that, just go to chrismontylive.com. And I got a lot of shows coming up all over the Northeast for the next 4 or 5 months. I got stuff starting to book up. So check me out on chrismontylive.com and you can see where I'm going to be. And hopefully I'll be wherever you are soon in your town because we need to get back at it and get out there because it's been a long pandemic.
It absolutely has. Chris, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon. And don't forget, guys, you can check out his special on Amazon Prime. It's called What's the Worst That Can Happen? You definitely got to check it out. Thank you, Chris.
Let's go Mets, buddy. Thank you.
Let's go Mets. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the first episode of Catching Feelings. Chris Monty, a fantastic guest, good friend, great comic. Absolutely thrilled that he was able to do the show. And we don't expect to go this long every time, but you know what? Hey, sometimes it happens because we had a ton of stuff to talk about, off-season stuff, spring training stuff, contracts. We're going to get into what's going on with the Mets. We're going to do it often. We're going to do it in between every series if we can. I'm going to have some great guests on, comics, athletes, host personalities, musicians, Mets fans of other teams. We're going to do all that stuff. So thank you to everybody who watched today. We're hoping to get that viewership up and up and up as we keep doing them. Thank you for people who were in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube after it has been posted, please go ahead and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And I will see you guys in a couple days. LFGM later.